She found him bleeding out behind a wall of shipping crates, 2 infants clutched against his chest like shields, and a gun trembling in his hand pointed directly at her heart. The November cold had teeth. It bit through Doris Vance's thin security jacket as she made her final rounds through the distribution center's loading bay, her crutches clicking rhythmically against concrete still damp from yesterday's freeze. The overhead lights flickered in that stuttering way that meant maintenance had been deferred again. Somewhere in the distance, a semi's air brakes hissed. Then silence dropped back over the yard like a burial shroud. Doris checked her phone. 11:47 p.m. 13 minutes until clock out. 13 minutes until she could limp to her car, drive home, and collapse onto her second-hand couch with the heating pad pressed against the surgical scars that still screamed after 8-hour shifts. The accident had been 18 months ago. The medical bills still arrived with the regularity of seasons. Her right knee throbbed with each step, the titanium pins holding her reconstructed joint together grinding in a way her orthopedist promised would eventually fade. It hadn't. The physical therapy she could barely afford helped, but not enough. Not nearly enough. Still, this night shift paid $3 more per hour than day patrol, and $3 times 40 hours meant she could buy the prescription anti-inflammatories instead of rationing gas station ibuprofen. She was adjusting her grip on the left crutch, the rubber tip worn dangerously smooth, when her phone buzzed. Additional patrol required Bay 12. Rear loading zone. Priority check. Doris frowned. She never patrolled Bay 12. That section belonged to Dimitri's route. She thumbed back to her schedule. Nothing had changed, but the alert was there, time-stamped 3 minutes ago, marked urgent. Just finish and go home, she thought. But $3 an hour meant following orders, even the strange ones. The rear loading zone sprawled into deeper darkness, away from the main building's security floods. This part of the facility stored overflow inventory pallets of miscellaneous goods waiting for trucks that came sporadically, sometimes not for weeks. The area should have been empty, silent. It wasn't. Doris stopped, crutches planted, straining to hear over the industrial hum from the main warehouse. They're faint but unmistakable. Crying. Not the mewling of stray cats that sometimes nested in the loading equipment. This was human. Infant. 2 voices. 2 babies, wailing with the desperate, hiccuping terror of abandonment. Her security radio hung heavy on her belt, but her hand didn't reach for it. Instead, she moved forward, crutches swinging faster, her rebuilt knee protesting with each jarring impact. Hello? Her voice barely carried over the infant's cries. Is someone there? She rounded a tower of stacked pallets, and the scene materialized like something from a fever dream. 2 car seats sat on the oil-stained concrete, wedged between crates. The babies inside couldn't have been more than 6 months old, one in pale pink, one in soft blue, their small faces contorted in red, fists flailing. Then she saw him, slumped against the corrugated metal wall, legs splayed, torso twisted at an angle that spoke of collapse rather than rest. His suit was expensive, even ruined and soaked black with blood. She could tell it cost more than she made in 3 months. Dark hair fell across his forehead in sweat-drenched strands. Tattoos crept up his neck from beneath his collar, intricate serpentine patterns that seemed to writhe in the stuttering light. And blood. So much blood. Pooling beneath him. Still spreading. Oh God. Doris lurched forward, her crutches clattering as she dropped to her knees beside him. The concrete was slick, warm, fresh blood. Sir, can you hear me? His eyes snapped open, dark, nearly black, and filled with something that froze her in place. Not fear, calculation. The eyes of a predator assessing threat. His right hand moved with excruciating slowness, lifting from where it had been pressed against his chest. Metal glinted. A gun. Compact, black, and now aimed squarely at her face. Leave. The words scraped out of him, thick with pain, and an accent that shaped the vowels differently. Korean. Maybe. Leave now, or I kill you. Doris should have run. Every functioning synapse in her brain screamed at her to push backward, to scramble away, to call for help and let someone else handle the man with a gun and mysterious babies and enough blood loss to paint the concrete. But her hands were already moving. She'd dropped 1 crutch, was already reaching toward the wound she could see through his shredded shirt, high on the left side of his chest. Still seeping, the edges of the tear in his flesh dark and angry. "You need a hospital." The words came out automatic, the script from her EMT training that she'd taken before the accident, back when she'd thought about becoming a paramedic. "This is a gunshot wound. You're bleeding out. I need to call 911. No." The gun steadied, despite the tremor in his arm. His jaw clenched, tendons standing out sharp against his neck. "No police. No ambulance. They will find them. They will take my children." The baby screamed louder, as if punctuating his words. Doris looked past him to the loading dock doors. They were locked from the outside. She could see the chains through the wire-reinforced windows. He wasn't hiding here. He was trapped here, cornered. Her mind raced through scenarios, each more impossible than the last. This wasn't random. The shifted patrol route, the locked doors, the absence of other security. Someone had orchestrated this. But why? And why her? The man's eyes fluttered, his grip on the gun wavering. "Please." The word barely escaped his lips, shaped more by desperation than breath. "Please. They are everything." Doris thought of the night 18 months ago, the screech of brakes, the impact that had shattered her knee and hip and sent her fiancé's car spinning into the guardrail. The way Malcolm had looked at her in the hospital afterward, not with love, but with something that looked like blame, like she'd become a burden he couldn't bear. He'd left 2 weeks after her surgery. No note, no explanation, just gone. She'd learned then what it meant to be abandoned when you were broken. "Okay." The word left her mouth before her brain could countermand it. "Okay, but we're moving. Right now. Can you stand?" He nodded. It was almost certainly a lie. Doris grabbed the first car seat, her arms straining under the unexpected weight. She tucked it behind a nearby crate, then grabbed the second, her damaged legs screaming in protest. The baby's cries had softened to exhausted whimpers. She returned to the man, wedging her shoulder under his good arm. "My name is Doris. My car is in the employee lot, maybe 200 feet. You're going to make it there. Understand?" He nodded again, his free hand finally lowering the gun. On 3. 1, 2, 3. They rose together, and Doris's reconstructed knee immediately buckled. She locked it with a gasp, bearing down on her crutch, and somehow they stayed upright. He was tall, at least 6'1", and solid muscle beneath the soaked fabric. Each step was agony, his weight pressing down through her damaged joints. But she gritted her teeth and pushed forward. "I'm Doris Fant," she panted, partly to keep him conscious, partly to keep herself from screaming. "I work security here. I have. Some medical training. Not much, but enough. I hope. I really hope it's enough." They staggered past the pallets, through the shadows, toward the distant glow of the parking lot lights. Behind them, the loading bay sat silent and empty, as if nothing had happened at all. Doris knew better. Whatever she just stepped into, it wasn't over. It was only just beginning. Before we dive deeper, I want you to join our family. Make sure you're subscribed, hit that like button, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love seeing our little dark romance family stretch across cities, countries, and time zones. Whether you're cozied up at midnight or listening during your commute, you're part of something special here. Every click, every comment, every bit of love you leave here helps us keep unraveling these dangerous love stories and high-stakes betrayals together. So find your quiet place, dim the lights, and get ready. Because what happens next will test everything Doris thought she knew about survival, sacrifice, and the kind of love that's forged in blood and darkness. Let's continue. Doris's car sat 3 rows deep in the employee lot, and those 50 yards might as well have been 50 miles. Jae-sung's weight bore down through her shoulder, each step sending white-hot pain shooting up from her reconstructed knee. She'd wedged one crutch under her left arm for balance, but it kept slipping against the slick pavement. Her right leg trembled violently, the titanium pins grinding in a way that made her stomach turn. "Stay with me," she panted, more command than request. 20 more feet. You can do 20 feet. He mumbled something in Korean, his head lolling against her shoulder. blood soaked through her security jacket, warm and sticky. Behind them, the car seats bumped against her hip. With each lurching step, she'd looped both handles over her free arm, and the combined weight of the babies made her biceps scream. 10 feet. 5. Her knee buckled. Doris went down hard on her good leg, absorbing the impact through her crutch. Jae-sung's weight nearly took her all the way to the ground, but she locked her elbow, muscles shaking, and somehow kept them both upright. Not yet, she hissed through gritted teeth. We're not dying in a parking lot. She hauled him the final steps to her sedan and propped him against the passenger door. Her hands shook as she fumbled the keys from her pocket, opened the back door, secured first one car seat, then the other. The babies had quieted to exhausted whimpers, their eyes wide and glassy. Getting Jay into the front seat took 3 attempts. By the time she collapsed behind the wheel, her vision had grayed at the edges, and her rebuilt leg felt like someone had taken a blowtorch to the joint. The engine turned over on the second try. Doris didn't head for the exit. Instead, she drove deeper into the complex, toward the maintenance building where the security break room sat, hidden behind equipment storage. Windowless. Forgotten. Safe. She killed the engine and looked at Jae-sung. His breathing had gone shallow, his skin waxy and pale. Don't you dare die on me now, she whispered. The break room was cluttered with abandoned coffee makers and outdated safety manuals. Doris cleared a table with one sweep of her arm, sending papers scattering. She couldn't lift Jay alone instead. She braced him against her hip and walked him the final steps, letting him collapse onto the table's surface. His eyes fluttered open, unfocused. My children. They're here. They're safe. Doris grabbed the babies, setting both car seats on the floor near the table where he could see them. But you won't be if I don't stop this bleeding. She tore open his shirt. The bullet wound sat high on his left chest, just below the collarbone through and through, which meant exit wound somewhere in his back. Still bleeding, but slower now. That could mean clotting or shock. Probably shock. The first aid kit on the wall was basic. Gauze, tape, antiseptic, scissors. Not enough. Nowhere near enough. The baby started crying again, that desperate newborn wail that bypassed rational thought and went straight to primal instinct. Doris's hands froze over Jay's wound. She couldn't do both. Couldn't treat him and calm them simultaneously. Please, Jay whispered, his eyes finding the car seats. Please, not them. Doris grabbed both babies, awkward and unpracticed, and tucked them against her chest as she sank into a rolling chair. She rocked stiff, mechanical movements that probably looked nothing like proper soothing, but slowly, impossibly, they quieted. Their small bodies relaxed against her, their breathing evening out. Okay, she murmured to them, to herself, to the universe. Okay. We're okay. She settled them back in their seats and returned to Jay. Her phone sat heavy in her pocket. 911. 3 numbers. Help on the way. Her hand reached for it. Jay's hand shot out, fingers closing around her wrist with surprising strength. No. His eyes locked onto hers, wide and desperate. No police. They will find us. They will kill us all. Something in his voice, raw, animal terror, made her pause. Who? She asked. Who's going to kill you? He didn't answer. His grip loosened, his hand falling away. Doris stared at her phone for 3 long seconds. Then she set it face down on the counter and reached for the first aid supplies. Her hand shook as she cleaned the wound, as she threaded the curved needle from the emergency suture kit she'd never thought she'd use. Each stitch was clumsy, imperfect, but she pulled the torn flesh together, sealed it as best she could with trembling fingers. Jay's breathing steadied, deepened. You're going to make it, Doris said, taping gauze over her work. You hear me? You're going to. Eshindangeso. The words escaped his lips like a prayer, barely audible. His eyes had closed, his body finally surrendering to unconsciousness. They betrayed me. Doris sat back, her own body shaking with exhaustion and adrenaline crash. She didn't speak Korean, didn't understand what he'd said, but she understood betrayal just fine. She looked at the babies sleeping peacefully in their seats, at the man who'd nearly died protecting them, at her own blood-stained hands. What the hell did I just get myself into? She whispered to the empty room. No one answered. Jae-sung woke with a gasp, his body jerking upright before pain slammed him back down onto the table. His eyes darted wildly around the break room, searching for threats, for exits, for his children. Easy. Doris moved into his line of sight, hands raised. You're safe. The babies are safe. His gaze found the car seats on the floor, and something in his expression cracked. Relief, or maybe just exhaustion. Who are you? Doris planted herself between him and the door, crutches braced for stability. And I don't mean your name. I mean, who are you really? Because people don't get shot and refuse hospitals unless they're running from something worse than bullets. Jay's jaw tightened. He looked away. One of the babies, the girl in pink, began to fuss, her small face scrunching in pre-cry distress. Within seconds, the boy joined her, their cries escalating from whimper to wail. Doris watched Jay's face transform. The guarded hardness melted into something desperately tender. Please, he whispered. I know what they need. Doris grabbed the diaper bag she'd found in his car, or what was left of it after she'd retrieved it from the wreckage. Inside, formula, bottles, diapers, and a change of clothes for each baby. Supplies that spoke of preparation, of a father who'd planned for everything except betrayal. She'd never changed a diaper in her life. It showed. The first attempt resulted in the tape stuck to itself, the second in the diaper on backwards. By the third try, she'd figured out the basic mechanics, even if her technique was clumsy. The formula took longer. She had to Google the ratio of powder to water, test the temperature on her wrist like she'd seen in movies. Jay watched her fumble through each task, and something shifted in his expression. Trust, maybe, or recognition of someone trying desperately to help despite having no idea what they were doing. My name is Jae-sung, he said quietly, as Doris settled into the chair with both bottles, a baby awkwardly cradled in each arm. I am heir to the Guryong Syndicate, Korean organized crime. Tonight, someone in my organization tried to kill me. Doris's hand stilled. You're Mafia. Yes. She should have been terrified. Should have grabbed her phone and called the police. Consequences be damned. Instead, she looked down at the babies, drinking their formula with single-minded focus, their small hands flexing against the bottles. And them? So young. He nodded toward the girl. My daughter. And Ji-hoon, my lieutenant's son. His father was murdered 3 months ago. I swore to raise him as my own. They're not, Doris blinked. They're not siblings? Not by blood, but they are brother and sister now. His voice hardened. The people who betrayed me want So Young as leverage. They want Ji-hoon dead. The bottle slipped in Doris's grip. She caught it before it fell. That's insane. He's a baby. He is heir to a bloodline they want erased. Doris stood carefully, settling both babies back in their seats. They'd fallen asleep mid-feeding, milk-drunk and peaceful. When she turned back to Jay, she found him trying to sit up. Don't. I need to see if the bleeding has started again. She helped him swing his legs off the table, her hands steadying him as he swayed. His shirt, what remained of it, hung open, revealing the extent of the damage beneath. And the tattoos. Doris had seen them before, in the loading bay, but now in the harsh, fluorescent light, she could see the detail. Intricate geometric patterns covered his chest and shoulders, interlocking symbols, numbers woven into designs that looked almost like circuitry. Beautiful and strange and definitely not decorative. What are these? Her finger traced near one pattern, not quite touching. Jay's expression went carefully blank. Insurance. Insurance? He took a slow breath, pain flickering across his face. Encrypted codes, offshore vault locations, weapons, contracts, access passwords to accounts worth hundreds of millions, everything needed to control the Guryong Empire. His eyes met hers, tattooed into my skin so they could never be stolen, never be lost. Doris's hand dropped away. So killing you would only transfer power to whoever can decode them. Dead or alive, my body is worth more than gold. He smiled, bitter and exhausted. I am a walking treasure map, and now, anyone who helps me becomes a target. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. That's why you didn't want the police, Doris said slowly. They'd turn you over to someone, or they're already compromised. Yes. She looked at the sleeping babies, at this man who was both criminal and father, at her own blood-stained hands. She'd thought she was rescuing someone from a random attack. Instead, she'd stepped into the center of a war she didn't understand, with stakes she couldn't begin to calculate. Okay, Doris said finally. Jay blinked. Okay? Those babies need you alive, so we figure out how to keep you that way. She grabbed her crutches. But first, you're going to tell me everything. And I mean everything. Doris's phone sat on the counter where she'd left it, screen dark and silent. Too silent. She should have received at least 3 automated check-in alerts by now, standard protocol for solo night shifts. She unlocked it and pulled up her schedule. The screen showed Bay 12 patrol at 11:45 p.m. Required check. Priority alert. That's not right. Her thumb scrolled back through the week. A12 had never been on her rotation. Ever. This was changed. Someone changed They hacked your system. Jay's voice cut through her rising panic. He'd managed to stand, one hand braced against the wall. They needed someone isolated, someone physically vulnerable. His eyes found her crutches, someone easy to frame for what comes next. The words hit like a physical blow. Frame? Frame me for what? For helping a criminal escape. Or worse, for killing him and taking his children. Jay moved to the window, careful to stay out of sight as he peered through the blinds. His body went rigid. They're here. Doris crossed to him, looked out. 3 figures moved through the parking lot, methodical and precise, checking vehicles. One spoke into a radio. Another held something in his hand, a phone, maybe, or a tracking device. They're searching for us. Doris's grip tightened on her crutches. How did They've been tracking me since the ambush. They knew I'd look for help. He turned to her, his expression grim. You need to run. Take your car and go. I'll distract them. Are you insane? Doris grabbed the diaper bag, slinging it over her shoulder. You can barely stand. You think you're going to distract armed men? Better me than you. Not your decision. She scooped up So Young's car seat, then Ji-hoon's, her arms already trembling with the weight. There's a rear exit through the maintenance corridor, leads straight to the employee lot's back section. We go now. Jay stared at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. They moved through the darkened corridor, Doris leading despite her crutches, Jay following with one hand pressed against his bandaged wound. The babies stayed mercifully quiet, as if they understood the danger. 50 feet from the exit, Doris's rebuilt knee buckled. She went down hard, the car seats tipping dangerously. Before they could hit the ground, Jay was there, his arm catching her waist, steadying her, taking the weight of one car seat with his free hand. Pain spasmed across his face, but he held firm. I've got you, he breathed. They stayed frozen for 3 heartbeats, his arm around her, their faces inches apart in the darkness. Doris could feel his pulse racing against her shoulder, could smell blood and expensive cologne, and something else. Fear, maybe, or determination. Together, she whispered. Together. They made it to her sedan without encountering anyone. Doris loaded the babies while Jay kept watch, then helped him into the passenger seat. Her hands shook as she started the engine. Where do we go? She asked. Away. Just drive. Doris pulled out of the lot slowly, headlights off until they reached the main road. The city sprawled before them, lights glittering in the November darkness, full of places to hide and people who might help or might betray them. Jay's hand found hers on the gearshift. His fingers were cold, his grip weak, but steady. You saved my children, he said softly. In my world, that creates a blood debt. For that, my life is yours. Doris should have said something, should have deflected or argued or reminded him she'd just been doing what anyone would do, but that would have been a lie. Anyone else would have run. Let's focus on keeping you alive first, she said instead. She checked the rearview mirror, empty highway, sparse traffic. But something prickled at the base of her skull, that same instinct that had warned her in the loading bay. 3 cars back, maintaining steady distance. A black sedan matched their speed exactly. Not pulling closer. Not falling back. Just watching. "Jay," Doris said quietly, "we've got company." He twisted to look, pain flickering across his face, then settled back with a curse in Korean. "How many ways can they track you?" Doris asked. "Too many." He closed his eyes. "And now they're tracking you too." Doris pressed the accelerator, her rebuilt leg protesting as she pushed the old sedan faster. The black car matched their speed, staying precisely 3 car lengths back. They weren't trying to catch them. They were hurting them. "Hold on," Doris said, and yanked the wheel toward the next exit. Doris's apartment was a 3rd-floor walk-up with peeling paint and a landlord who'd stopped pretending to care. She'd chosen it because the rent was cheap and the building's ancient security system meant no digital footprint. Now, those same features felt like thin protection against the kind of people hunting them. Jay collapsed onto her second-hand couch the moment they made it inside, his face gray with exhaustion. The babies had woken during the drive, and their cries had deteriorated from fussy to desperate. "They're hungry," Doris said, checking the diaper bag. Empty formula containers rattled at the bottom. "I need to buy more. Don't go alone. You can barely stand. Someone has to stay with them." She grabbed her wallet, counting the bills inside. $43, her grocery money for the week. "I'll be fast. 10 minutes. Tops." The convenience store 3 blocks down stayed open 24 hours, its fluorescent lights harsh against the dark street. Doris moved through the aisles quickly, grabbing 2 containers of formula, the expensive kind the babies had been drinking, because switching brands now could make things worse. At the register, she felt it. That prickle of awareness, like static electricity on her skin. Someone was watching. She turned, scanning the store. A man in a dark jacket stood by the refrigerated section, his back to her, seemingly absorbed in his phone. An elderly woman examined lottery tickets. The cashier rang up her purchase with mechanical disinterest. Paranoia, Doris thought. "You're just paranoid." But her hands shook as she paid. Back in the apartment, Doris mixed the formula with practiced efficiency now, testing the temperature against her wrist. Jay watched from the couch, too weak to help but unwilling to look away from his children. "Here we go," Doris murmured, settling into her chair with So Young cradled in her left arm. Jay took Ji-hoon despite his wound, holding the bottle with trembling hands. The babies drank eagerly, desperately. Doris felt the tension in her shoulders start to ease. Then So Young's body went rigid. The bottle fell from Doris's hand. The baby's eyes rolled back, her small limbs jerking in violent spasms. Across the room, Ji-hoon began convulsing in Jay's arms. "No." Jay's scream tore through the apartment. "No. No. Seizures." Doris laid So Young on the floor, her mind racing through her limited medical training. Poisoning. Had to be poisoning. The formula someone had tampered with. The formula. "Jay, put him down. On his side." Her hands moved on autopilot, checking So Young's airway, feeling for a pulse too fast, dangerously fast. Foam appeared at the corner of the baby's mouth. Toxic ingestion. They needed a hospital, needed activated charcoal, needed equipment she didn't have. Think. Think! Doris lurched to the bathroom, her damaged leg nearly giving out. She yanked open the medicine cabinet with shaking hands. Saline solution, she had that for her contact lenses. Tubing, nothing medical grade. But she had the aquarium airline from the fish tank she'd abandoned months ago. A turkey baster from the kitchen drawer. Improvise. That's what she'd learned in the accident's aftermath. When the system fails you, you improvise. She dropped to the floor beside So Young, her rebuilt knees screaming in protest. "Jay, I need you to hold her steady. Pin her arms gently, don't let her aspirate." "What are you doing?" His voice broke. "Flushing her system. It's not perfect, but it's all we've got." Her hands shook so violently she nearly dropped the tubing. The disability made everything harder. Her damaged leg couldn't provide stable bracing. Her balance was wrong, her fine motor control compromised by pain and adrenaline. But she forced herself steady, muscle by muscle, breath by breath. She worked on So Young first, using the tubing and saline to flush her mouth, the turkey baster to manually suction crude, desperate, but effective. The baby's convulsions began to slow, then Ji-hoon, Jay holding his son with tears streaming down his face. Minutes stretched into hours, or maybe it was seconds. Time lost meaning. Finally, impossibly, both babies lay still, breathing, their pulses steadier, alive. Doris collapsed backward, her entire body shaking with exhaustion and shock. She'd done it. Somehow, with duct tape and desperation and sheer stubborn will, she'd done it. Jay gathered both babies against his chest, then reached for Doris. His arm pulled her close, his body trembling as violently as hers. "You are the bravest woman I have ever met," he whispered against her hair, his voice wrecked. "The strongest. His words dissolved into Korean, phrases she couldn't understand but felt in her bones. Doris closed her eyes, letting herself lean into him for just one moment, just one breath. Then she pulled back and met his gaze. "They poisoned babies," she said quietly. "These people, they poisoned infants to get to you." Jay's expression hardened into something cold and lethal. "Yes, then we're not running anymore." Doris reached for her crutches. "We're finding out who did this, and we're making them pay. Take a breath with me for just a second. If you're sitting here feeling your heart race, if you're rooting for Doris and these babies, if you're already invested in their survival, you're exactly where you need to be. Make sure you're subscribed so you never miss these stories. Hit that like button and tell me where you're watching from, because I love seeing our little dark romance family stretch across cities, countries, and time zones. Whether you're cozied up at midnight or listening during your commute, every click, every comment, every bit of love you leave here helps us keep unraveling these dangerous love stories and high-stakes betrayals together. Our community gets it. We understand, loving the broken characters, the impossible odds, the fierce protection. Your support, it's what makes this space feel like home. Now let's follow them into the night, because the hardest part, it's just beginning." They left the apartment at 3 a.m., moving through streets slicked with rain that had started falling an hour earlier. Doris had packed what little they'd need: diapers, formula she didn't trust, a first aid kit, and the gun Jay had been holding when she found him. "Where are we going?" Jay asked, cradling Ji-hoon, while Doris managed So-young's car seat and her crutches in a precarious balancing act. "Somewhere they won't look." Doris led them 6 blocks south to an industrial area she knew from her security work. An abandoned storage yard sat behind chain-link fence, filled with rusted shipping containers and equipment left to rot. No cameras, no security, no digital trace. They squeezed through a gap in the fence and took shelter in a container that still had its doors. Inside, Doris laid the babies on blankets while Jay kept watch at the entrance, his wound freshly bandaged but seeping through the gauze. "We can't stay long," he said quietly. "They'll search every..." Footsteps. Multiple sets, moving with military precision. Jay's hand went to his gun. Doris grabbed her crutches, positioning herself between the babies and the door. Flashlight beams cut through the darkness outside. Voices called out coordinates. They'd been found. "Come out," Jay sung. The voice that rang through the storage yard was American, confident, cold. "Come out, or we burn that container with everyone inside." Jay's face went hard. He checked his gun, 3 bullets left, then looked at Doris. "When they open the door, take the children and run. Don't look back, don't stop." "I'm not leaving." "You don't have a choice." The container doors shrieked open. 6 men stood silhouetted against the ambient glow of distant streetlights, weapons raised. But it was the man in front, the one without a gun, the one whose face Doris would have recognized anywhere that made her world tilt sideways. "Malcolm?" Her former fiancé stepped forward, and the flashlight beam caught his features. Same sharp jawline, same dark eyes, but harder now, colder, like something vital had been carved out and replaced with ice. "Hello, Doris." His voice held no warmth, no recognition of what they'd been to each other. "Step away from Jae-sung. This doesn't concern you." Doris's crutches nearly slipped from her hands. "You disappeared. After the accident, you left me. Step away." Malcolm's gaze moved to Jay. "I'm here for him and the girl. The boy dies here." "No." The word left Doris's mouth before her brain caught up. She moved in front of the babies, her body a shield. Malcolm, they're infants. You can't. I can. I will. But something flickered in his expression. Doubt. Maybe. Or pain. Doris, don't make this harder. You don't understand what's happening here. Then explain it. Her voice cracked. Explain why you left me when I couldn't walk. Explain why you're here now, threatening to kill babies. Explain why you became this. Malcolm's carefully controlled mask shattered. You think I wanted this? The words exploded out of him. You think I chose to leave you in that hospital? You walked away. I was taken. His hands curled into fists. Your accident, the other driver had connections to the Guryong syndicate. My father owed them money, gambling debts he could never repay. They came to collect, and I was the payment. He looked away, jaw clenched. They said if I didn't cooperate, they'd kill you. Finish what the accident started. The ground seemed to drop away beneath Doris's feet. They trained me, conditioned me, turned me into this. Malcolm's voice went hollow. They used my guilt, told me you'd be better off without me, that I was worthless, that I'd destroyed your life, and I believed them. I believed I deserved this. Behind Doris, one of the babies whimpered. Malcolm's eyes tracked the sound, and something human flickered in his expression. But you're here now, he said softly, almost to himself, protecting a criminal, risking everything for children that aren't yours. He looked at Jay, then back to Doris. You're braver than I ever was. Malcolm. He turned to face the assassins behind him. New plan. You're not touching those children. You've lost your mind, one of them growled. Probably. Malcolm's stance shifted, ready for violence. But I'm done being their weapon. The assassin raised his gun. Malcolm moved faster, closing the distance, his hand striking out. The gunshot was deafening in the enclosed space. The firefight erupted in a chaos of muzzle flashes and ricocheting bullets. Doris threw herself over the car seats, dragging both behind a stack of rusted oil drums as gunfire tore through the shipping container's metal walls. The babies screamed, their cries lost beneath the thunder of weapons. Malcolm moved like something unleashed, disarming the closest assassin with brutal efficiency. Jay fought beside him despite his wound, each shot precise and controlled. 3 bullets, 3 targets, but there were 6 men. Doris saw the assassin flanking left, saw his weapon track toward her, toward the babies she was covering with her own body. Time slowed. She couldn't move fast enough. Couldn't. Malcolm threw himself in front of her. The first bullet took him in the shoulder, spinning him sideways. The second caught his chest. The third would have hit Doris's head, but Malcolm's body absorbed it, and he went down hard, collapsing against the oil drums. No! Doris's scream tore from somewhere primal. Jay's gun barked twice more. The flanking assassin dropped. Another fell. Malcolm, from the ground, still moving despite the blood spreading across his shirt, grabbed a fallen weapon and fired once, twice, eliminating the final 2 threats. Then silence. Terrible, ringing silence broken only by the baby's cries and Malcolm's labored breathing. Doris crawled to him, her crutches forgotten, her damaged leg dragging uselessly. Malcolm. No. 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 Her hands pressed against his chest, trying to stop bleeding that wouldn't stop, couldn't stop. Doris. His hand found hers, weak and cold. I'm sorry. Don't. Don't you dare apologize now. Tears blurred her vision. You're going to be fine. We'll get you to a hospital. Too late for that. Blood flecked his lips when he smiled. Always too late for me. His fingers tightened around hers. I never stopped loving you. Not for 1 second. Not even when they broke me and rebuilt me and turned me into something I hated. Then why didn't you fight? The words came out broken. Why didn't you come back? Because I was weak. Because I believed them when they said you deserved better. His breathing hitched, grew shallower. I failed you twice. Once when I left, again when I took so long to remember who I was. You came back when it mattered. Doris pressed her forehead to his, her tears falling onto his face. You saved us. You saved the babies. Good. His eyes started to drift closed. That's good. Maybe that means Malcolm? Malcolm, stay with me. But his hand went slack in hers, his chest stilling beneath her palms. The man who'd left her broken and then died protecting her was gone. Doris didn't know she was screaming until Jay's arms wrapped around her, pulling her away from Malcolm's body. She fought him, or tried to, but he held her steady, his grip gentle but unyielding. We have to go, Jay said quietly. Doris, we have to move. More will come. He died. He died protecting me. And the words fractured. Everything fractured. The careful control she'd maintained since the accident, since Malcolm's abandonment, since she'd found Jay bleeding in that loading bay, it all shattered at once. She broke down against Jay's chest, sobs tearing through her while he held her, silent and solid. He didn't offer platitudes or false comfort. He simply held her while she grieved for the man Malcolm had been, for the life they'd never have, for the closure that had come 18 months too late. Finally, when her tears ran dry and her breathing steadied, Jay spoke. He loved you. At the end, that's what mattered to him. Doris nodded, unable to speak. They gathered the babies, both miraculously unharmed, and fled into the night. Jay drove this time, Doris too shattered to function. They found a motel 40 miles outside the city, the kind of place that took cash and didn't ask questions. Inside room 214, Doris finally let Jay tend to his reopened wound, while the babies slept in their car seats on the bed. The silence between them felt different now, heavier, more intimate. I'm sorry about Malcolm, Jay said as she rebandaged his shoulder with fresh gauze. Me too, Doris's hands stilled. But he made his choice. In the end, he chose right. Jay's fingers found her chin, tilting her face up to meet his gaze. You are stronger than anyone I've ever known. You carry pain that would break most people, and you still choose to help, to fight, to save. I'm not strong. You're everything. His thumb brushed away a remaining tear. Everything I'm not. Their faces were inches apart. Doris could feel his breath, see the gold flecks in his dark eyes, sense the moment hovering between them like something fragile and vital. Then a knock at the door. 3 measured strikes. Deliberate. Purposeful. Jay's hand went to his gun. Doris grabbed her crutches. A woman's voice, accented and cold, drifted through the cheap wood. Jay sung. I know you're in there. Jay's face went bloodless. His hand trembled on the weapon. My wife, he whispered. She's supposed to be dead. The motel room smelled of stale cigarettes and industrial cleaner, but after everything they'd survived, it felt almost safe. Doris sat on the edge of the bed, both babies nestled against her chest. So Young's tiny hand curled around Doris's thumb, while Jihoon's head rested in the crook of her arm, both finally sleeping peacefully. Jay emerged from the bathroom, his wound freshly bandaged, exhaustion carved into every line of his face. He moved slowly, carefully, lowering himself into the chair across from her. You're good with them, he said quietly. I have no idea what I'm doing. Doris adjusted her hold, supporting their small bodies more securely. Before tonight, I'd never even held a baby. You saved their lives. Twice. His eyes held hers. That's more than many natural parents would do. Silence settled between them, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was the kind of quiet that comes after shared trauma, when words feel both inadequate and unnecessary. Can I ask you something? Jay's voice broke the stillness. Your accident. What happened? Doris looked down at the sleeping infants. She'd avoided talking about that night for 18 months, even with her therapist. But something about this moment, this man who'd seen her at her most vulnerable, made the words come easier. Malcolm was driving. We'd been out celebrating my acceptance into a nursing program. A car ran a red light and hit us on my side. Her hand unconsciously moved to her knee. I remember the impact, the way the metal crumpled inward. My leg trapped and Malcolm screaming. Then nothing until I woke up in surgery. And Malcolm walked away with bruises. But something broke in him that night. Not bones, something deeper. She met Jay's gaze. He looked at me in that hospital bed like I was his failure, his burden. 2 weeks later, he was gone. I thought he chose to leave because I wasn't whole anymore. You were always whole, Jay said fiercely. He was the one who was broken. Doris felt her throat tighten. Some days I believed that. Most days I didn't. Jay stood, moving to sit beside her on the bed, close enough that she could feel his warmth, see the way his jaw tightened with emotion he was trying to control. I understand feeling broken, he said. Every day I look at these children and think, how can I be their father? I'm a criminal, a killer. Everything I touch is stained with violence. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. Their mother died because of me. Ji-hoon's father died because of me. And now you're in danger because I couldn't protect them alone. That's not... I am unworthy of them. The words came out raw. Unworthy of their love, their trust. I am trying to be the father they deserve, but I don't know how. I only know how to be what my father made me, a weapon for the Guryong legacy. Doris shifted carefully, settling the babies onto the pillow between them where they could sleep safely. Then she reached for Jay's hand, lacing her fingers through his. You held them while you were dying, she said. You refused medical help because you were afraid they'd take your children away. You're willing to die protecting them. That's not unworthiness, Jay. That's love. His thumb traced circles on her palm, the gesture unconscious and intimate. You see the best in people, even when they don't deserve it. I see the truth. She leaned closer, drawn by something she couldn't name and didn't want to resist. And the truth is, you're a good father. You're a good man. The rest is just circumstances. Circumstances that could kill you. I'm still here, aren't I? Their faces were inches apart now. Jay's free hand came up to cup her cheek, his touch gentle despite the violence those hands had committed. Doris's breath caught. She could see the golden flecks in his dark eyes, could feel the tension coiling between them, grief and exhaustion and something deeper, something that felt like recognition, like coming home to someone you'd been searching for without knowing. Doris, he breathed and leaned forward. Their lips were a heartbeat away from meeting when 3 sharp knocks shattered the moment. Both of them froze. Jae-sung, a woman's voice, accented and silk smooth, filtered through the door. Korean-American, each syllable precisely enunciated. I know you're in there, and I know you have my children. Jay's face drained of all color. His hand dropped from Doris's cheek, reaching instead for the gun on the nightstand. No, he whispered, the word barely audible. It can't be. Who is it? Doris kept her voice low, her body instinctively curling protectively around the sleeping babies. Jay's hand trembled on the weapon. When he spoke, his voice was hollow, destroyed. My wife. Sorry. He looked at Doris, and in his eyes she saw something close to terror. She's supposed to be dead. Jay opened the door slowly, his gun held low but ready. Doris had already moved, positioning herself behind the dresser with both babies pressed close, her crutches within reach but abandoned for mobility she might need. The woman who entered was stunning in the way a blade was stunning, beautiful and deadly, and designed to cut. She wore white silk that should have been impractical for November but somehow looked perfect against her pale skin. Blood-red lipstick, dark hair swept into an immaculate twist. 2 men flanked her elite guards in tactical gear, weapons trained on Jay. Sori's eyes swept the cheap motel room with obvious disdain before settling on her husband. You look terrible, Jae-sung. Her accent wrapped around each syllable like honey laced with poison. Bleeding, broken, hiding in a place like this. How far you've fallen. You're dead. Jay's voice was flat, emotionless. I saw your body. I buried you. You buried what I wanted you to bury. Sori moved deeper into the room with liquid grace, her guards matching her steps. A convenient corpse, a necessary deception. I needed you to believe I was gone so you'd lower your guard. Why? The word came out jagged. Because the Guryong Syndicate doesn't belong to you anymore, husband. It belongs to me. She smiled, cold and triumphant. I've spent 2 years infiltrating your organization, turning your most loyal supporters, embedding my people in every level of your empire. Tonight was simply the final move, eliminating you and claiming what's rightfully mine. Jay's gun hand didn't waver. The children, our leverage, nothing more. Sori's gaze flicked toward the dresser where Doris hid, and something in her expression said she knew exactly where Doris was. So young can be raised to secure my power through strategic alliance. As for Jihoon, she shrugged, elegant and dismissive. A dead lieutenant's bastard has no value. He dies tonight. Behind the dresser, Doris felt rage ignite in her chest. Her hand found the metal lamp base she'd been gripping since Sori entered. Heavy, solid, a weapon if she needed one. You won't touch them. Jay's voice went deadly quiet. I don't need your permission. Sori nodded to her guards. Kill him. But keep the body intact. We'll need those tattoos decoded. The guards raised their weapons. Jay fired first, dropping one guard with a shot to the chest. But his wound had weakened him, slowed him. The second guard's bullet caught him in the shoulder, spinning him backward. Sori produced a small, elegant pistol from somewhere in her silk clothing. She pointed it at Jay's head, her smile widening. You always were too sentimental, she said. That's why you could never truly lead. You cared too much about honor, about family, about... Doris exploded from behind the dresser. She swung the lamp base with every ounce of strength in her body, her damaged legs screaming in protest but holding firm. The metal connected with the remaining guard's temple with a sickening crack. He went down hard. Sori spun toward her, gun tracking, but Doris was already moving awkward, lurching, but fast enough. She crashed into the other woman, both of them tumbling to the floor. You think you can stop me? Sori hissed, struggling beneath Doris's weight. Despite her elegance, she fought like something feral. You're nothing. A crippled security guard playing hero. I'm the woman who's going to watch you fail. Doris grabbed Sori's wrist, slamming it against the floor until the pistol skittered away. Behind them, Jay had recovered enough to retrieve a weapon from the fallen guard. He aimed it at Sori, his hand steady despite the blood soaking through his shirt. It's over, he said. Sori laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Over? This is just beginning. I have 20 operatives surrounding this motel. Kill me, and they breach every entrance. You'll never make it out alive. Then we die together. Jay's finger moved to the trigger. Wait. Doris pulled herself off Sori, grabbed her crutches, and positioned herself between the babies and everyone else. Her chest heaved. Her leg trembled violently, but she stood firm. You want the children? Want Jay's empire? You're going to have to go through me first. Sori rose slowly, smoothing her silk dress, her composure returning like a mask sliding back into place. She looked at Doris, really looked at her, and something calculating entered her expression. You love him, Sori said softly. The crippled girl loves my husband. How? Touching. I protect innocence, Doris corrected. Something you wouldn't understand. No. Sori moved toward the door, her movements unhurried. I understand perfectly, which is why I know exactly how to destroy you both. She paused at the threshold, turning back with a smile that promised nightmares. Enjoy this moment. It's the last peace you'll ever know. Then she was gone, her footsteps fading down the motel corridor. Jay lowered his weapon, his entire body shaking. She wasn't bluffing. If she has 20 operatives, then we fight. Doris gathered the babies, her decision already made. She'd run before, after the accident, after Malcolm left, after every terrible thing that had tried to break her. She was done running. We fight, we survive, and we protect these children. Together. Jay looked at her, this woman who'd saved him, saved his children, fought beside him despite having every reason to walk away, and something fierce and determined settled in his expression. Together, he agreed. Outside, car engines started in synchronized precision. Headlights cut through the motel room window. The siege was beginning, and Doris Fant, disabled security guard who'd stumbled into a war she never asked for, planted her crutches and prepared to fight for the family she'd found in the blood and darkness. She wouldn't run, not anymore. Before we close this chapter, I need to hear from you. If you're sitting there with your heart pounding, if you're already attached to Doris and Jay and those babies, If you felt Malcolm's sacrifice in your chest, make sure you're subscribed so we can continue this journey together. Hit that like button and drop a comment. Tell me where you're watching from. Tell me if you're Team Doris. Tell me what you think happens when those 20 operatives breach that motel. Our little dark romance family, we don't just consume these stories, we feel them, discuss them, live inside them together. Every click, every comment, every bit of love you leave here helps us keep unraveling these dangerous love stories and high-stakes betrayals. Whether you're cozied up at midnight or listening during your commute, you're part of something special here. And I promise, I've got so many more of these impossible, beautiful, heartbreaking stories waiting for you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for riding this night with me. Until next time, stay safe out there, and remember sometimes the strongest thing you can do is choose not to run.